All right, everyone, it is the last series of the day. Whoever makes it out of here is second in this group. Whoever loses is out of Ting. In the top left, as the blue Protoss, he is Harstem. And in the bottom right, as the red Protoss, he is DnS. They had a very close first series today. 3-2. And a lot of close games in that close series. So I'm not sure who's quite going to take it. A part of me wants to say that Harstem just needs to not be bamboozled. And he'll do fine. But don't forget that DnS was able to take a very solid macro game away from Harstem, one that he was winning. But just had a bad fight and lost. So I don't want to say that, just like it's a part of me wants to, because I give Harstem a lot of credit. But DnS, man, more than just an uppercomer lately. I guess you still have to call him that without huge results, but starting to really be on everyone's radar more than just the French fans who watch underdogs. With some good PvP, showcase some really great defense in PvZ, able to fully knock out Snoot. But he didn't seem too miffed about it. Just kind of said thanks and went on, and hopefully getting prepared for BlizzCon. As we have two normal PvP openers so far. I'll wait to see if they add anything on one base or not. Do want to remind everyone about the Matcherino that is happening for this season, so check that out. Also check out bttv.ting.com to learn more about the actual phone service that Ting provides. And then that Rifkin and I will be at the Ting booth along with Ting, Jesse, and Kyra. And the CEO tomorrow and Sunday at TwitchCon if any of you are attending, so come by and say hi. Also have a charging station. The setup looks really sick. They've got like a little banner with Neeb kissing a trophy. It looks pretty cool. And then also keep in mind that both of us will be traveling back Monday, so it won't be a cast then. The cast coming up next will be Tuesday's Alima League, and then there is going to be a bit of a lull until we can figure out if there's anything that Rifkin can do. Because I will, of course, be at BlizzCon casting the group stages. So that kind of covers the rest of the, next 2 or 3 weeks, really, of BaseTradeTV. As I said, Rifkin might be doing something on the days that I'm not around, but nothing has been planned, and it'd be abrupt. A lot of people are taking a chill pill. You know, people who aren't actually attending BlizzCon are taking their season off as it is, with not many other tournaments happening, especially if they haven't made it into WESG. So we have Nexus taken for both players. Not even really any scuffles happening with the early game, although now with 2 Adept, 2 Stalker, Harstem looking to take advantage. DnS not able to cut down the rocks fast enough. His Mothership Core is going to have to respond to the front. It looks like it's not going to be an open opportunity. A little bit of a scare, though, for sure. DnS did have another 2 units, but they were very fragile sentries. It doesn't want potentially being picked off by Adepts. Adepts choose to go for the Scout, and even with a limited shade range, they're literally right next to that Twilight Council, so they managed to see it. Harstem goes for a Robo and a Forge, which I believe he's done in most of the games here that have been macro-oriented, I guess. Instead of a Robo Twilight Council. I'm trying to think really hard. I mean, there's been a lot of PvP, so I might be wrong about that, but it sounds familiar. And Harstem was a guy that was going for a lot. Oh, I guess I missed the Adept shading in there. Whoopsie daisy. Yeah, the Adept shaded in there, and then he says they weren't supposed to finish, so he lost both of them. But Harstem was going for a lot of upgrade-oriented builds, even like a year ago, in the Yord Civil War, and still seems to like him for a lot. He had 2 Adepts, we're supposed to only get another Scout. That's unfortunate. I also thought they were just going to be able to leave, so I didn't even bother looking at DNS's side of the map. Whoopsie daisy. So the light's right in my face, so give me a second. Oh no, I made it worse. Okay. I fixed it. Oh my god. So much darker right now. Jose Phoenix gets in here. Would love to see what the Twilight Council is getting. It's still a pretty early one, so Stalkers with Blink could still be a real threat. Sometimes the easiest way to decide, to see what the Twilight Council is getting is what does their composition currently look like? What are they warping in? Is it Zealots or is it Stalkers? Well, he didn't really get to see anything warp in, so might still be a little bit questioning on what that's actually producing. Twilight Council now on the way for Harstem. Warp Prism as well. DnS already had his, and it is floating across the map. Lucien Phoenix is going to get a preemptive scout to see, hey, can my Warp Prism do anything? Third base for both players around the same time. What the hell was that? What else did I miss? Wait, what? Is that Lucien Phoenix? You don't usually want to post an overcharge against a hallucination. Especially when you have nothing that's scary. Maybe he wanted to hide the... I doubt he wanted to hide the forge. Okay, well, I don't know what that was about. But the Warp Prism has 2 adepts and is going into the main base, which does not have any defenses, but Photon Overcharge is a defense in and of itself, so the adept's got to shade somewhere else. Actually gonna play it safe. Shade back to the Warp Prism. Or not. Realizing, like, oh, the natural is completely fine. I'm gonna go for it. Gets a couple of probes. Looks like an adept, or no, a mortal attack from the Warp Prism of Harstem is not just going to grab a couple of probes, also a couple of stalkers. DnS perhaps in a hurry, warping in what he thought would be useful, didn't realize it was immortals. A couple sentries. Look, they're going up against a much more powerful double adept, but still, they got balls, man. They basically are balls. Harstem with a much faster forge has simply a full upgrade lead going into charge. DnS got charge, and as I said, Harstem, you know, maybe could have thought it was Blink. Just how long this game seems to be going, 3 bases and all that. I doubt it. I think he's assumed that it's going to be charge versus charge lot. Similar compositions, just much better upgrades. Harstem has been going into Disruptors, which DnS has been countering with Phoenix, but is that why he's getting Stargate? It might have been. And with his most recent scout, he must have realized, oh shit, he's not going Disruptors, I don't need that. Scouts it once again in a double, triple, quadruple check, sees Temple Archives and a Stargate of Harstem, so yeah, that was a hefty loss, canceling 2 Stargates. It's better than getting them and just finding out that they're useless. Lemonade. 4th base taken pretty quickly here, and we could be getting into PvP stages of Tempest versus Tempest if they really don't ever want to attack into each other. In which case, maybe not getting the Stargate to be a mistake, but that's so far off. That's really hard to say. Harstem getting a Stargate for the Phoenix to ward off the Warp Prism is something he's done before. Also can get the Oracle for further scouting if he wants to. DnS just going to rely on continued hallucinated Phoenixes. More Immortals being turned out for Harstem. Looks like DnS is a little more hesitant to get a lot of them. The Immortal dynamic in mid to late game PvP really, like, sometimes they seem really useless. They just do nothing but target down the charge lots and not even fast enough, but really, despite what they literally counter, Immortals, they got that barrier, they can soak up a lot of damage, and even without the hard counter, additional damage done to armored thing, they still pack a punch enough that they're not usually a terrible addition to the army, whereas sometimes Stalkers in late game PvP can definitely look like a terrible addition. Robo Bay is on the way. So Harstem still liking the Disruptor usage. Worked out kind of in one of the games against DnS and not so much in another. But DnS, you know, he scouted, he prepared for Disruptors, saw there were no Disruptors, might not be expecting later Disruptors, and could be hoodwinked. You know, I was talking about that I think the Disruptors have only been really effective when they're a surprise. Well, DnS might just be surprised. Consistent scouting every which way. Harstem gets a nice kill on that base. Cancel. And he's going to continue trying to look for more damage done. There's no pylons to overcharge. There will be, but there's not right now. Harstem just letting that go, but DnS isn't paying attention either. both focusing on the front lines, and that is a lot of charge loss, running into a lot of splash damage from the Archons. Harstem is getting into disruptors, but this army right here, right now, is still pretty beefy. Equal upgrades. Harstem about to have +3. Chooses to just simply disengage. That might have been the smarter move. He killed 17 probes as this went on. The Militia Corps really just never had any chance to help out. Well, the Warp Prism might have died. The Immortals went to town, and they'd already gotten a 4th base, which might just be canceled again here. So Harstem should not be too upset about losing that 4th. Oh my god. Really nice disruptor hit. So much damage done. DnS is desperately trying to go for Warp Prism harassment in the main base, but it's now 73 probes to 54, and Harstem will be able to get back that Nexus. DnS did not lose this one. Charge lots were dealt with. The Immortals finally cleaned up. It's certainly not saturated, and only now is he realizing to go for the double Stargate Phoenix play. That's going to be pretty late. Harstem is going to get another fight where he's going to be able to actually use his disruptors. His army is out of position, though. Guess was hoping DnS wouldn't tear down these rocks fast enough. So has to cancel his Nexus, and this is really good for DnS. Also grabs a couple of probes, evening the economy once again. Buying time, too. So the longer he doesn't take an engagement, the longer he doesn't have to worry about dealing with the disruptors, of which there are 4. Now a lot more equal on the income. Harstem spiking and then dipping back down. Fleet Beacon now on the way for DnS. I thought that that's battle around the 4th base could have been game ending, but it wasn't. This one still could be too. But if none of these are game ending, the next step of PvP would be to get into Tempests. A lot of disruptors here for Harstem, up to 5. 2 more on the way. Looking for any type of hit. DnS has a pylon, I guess, that could be used as a scout, but also slow warp-ins. Finally on his way to +3, but very far behind, and Harstem just disengaged entirely. Harstem still has that army supply lead with the upgrade lead, and disruptors could potentially get a really nice fight. He should be able to take a fight, but disruptors being kind of a question mark with the Phoenixes, and then Interloper being such a choked off map, he would be forcing his way into a very bad position. So even though 30 armor supply sounds like quite a bit, you don't want to just give it away. Maybe finding an opportunity. He's gonna try. Nice shot. Of course, Archon's losing shields that will regenerate eventually, but that much damage. Eventually, he's gonna force his way in here, and Harstem is allowed through. He's also got an attack set up towards the 4th base. Harstem's 5th is under attack. It's not gonna be canceled, it looks like, but he still has that 4th. Phoenix are gonna try and come in here. They need to get the list on the disruptors. DnS. I was worried he was going to lose his natural, ends up still staying strong. But his 4th base is going to get taken down. Immortals packed such a hefty punch. Mothership did finalize. Does Harstem have any detection whatsoever? He has 2 observers, but they're not with the army. Oh no. Charge lots coming forward out of the range of the cloak. That's what Harstem's fighting. The armor supplies have actually gotten to a similar count. Now they've been in favor of DnS. Charge lots are running into Archons. Need to wait for their mama. Wait for the mothership. I believe the observer has come forward now. No, I think the one that was coming forward was Snipes. So that's the 3rd observer now being produced. Or just now coming forward from being produced. Time Warp of all things was used. Don't usually see that. And Harstem manages to survive, but considering how much of an armor supply he had at the beginning of that fight, that was some gain for DnS. Now DnS did lose his 4th, where Harstem lost a 5th. So I guess Harstem's economy is looking a little bit better, but he had to replace more, so still pretty even. No cancel there either. Going through this very difficult choke. And also once again Harstem with the High Templars to feed back the Phoenixes sometimes doesn't really seem worth it. Revelation was, I think, necessary, as the observers of Harstem kept dying. Now has 2, but one's following the mothership core. A lot of positioning going down here. Really sucks that Harstem didn't cancel 2 Nexus. I mean, 800 minerals down. That's tough. And now he's got defender's advantage. DnS is forcing his way through that choke. Disruptor is coming out from the right and left side. No, one is picked up. Another one is picked up. There aren't any left over, and I think DnS might just be able to do this. He is down an armor upgrade, but does that really matter? Mass charge out Warpin's coming in here, and Harstem is just falling down in supply. DnS seems to have a better handle when it comes to these late game scenarios. GG. DnS takes game number 1. Now, eventually, Harstem was able to take the 3-2 in their last series, and that can definitely still happen here. DnS not only can win in the macro game, he also has a couple of those aggressive builds that he threw out against him. Certainly do it again. We'll scroll up past all the spam. Next up's going to be Acolytes. Not a map we see too often, but 2 Protosses. Makes sense. Where is TwitchCon? Long Beach, California. Where is Rifkin? Long Beach, California. Fear Dragon works. So you usually can't do European time stuff. Alright, players are in the lobby, so I will start this long intro. It's game number 2 on Acolyte. In the bottom left, finding himself down 1. It is Harstem. In the top right, as the red Protoss, it's DnS. I don't know what the music that was used in that was, but I thought it was J-Rock. It's funny, I think 15 years ago, any Asian-y sounding language music, everyone just assumed was Japanese. Because J-pop and anime was so popular. Well, it's still popular, but certainly J-pop was more popular because of it. Now with K-pop being so much more popular, that's what everyone defaults to when they hear an Asian song. How times change. Also, just FYI, K-pop is like 10 times superior to J-pop at this point in time. Again, 15 years ago, I don't think so, but Japan still has J-rock and baby metal, I think. I like it better in Korean. Does Korea even have any metal? Actually, the more I think about it, I don't know too many Korean metal bands. It's gotta exist, I just don't ever see them. Whoa! Alright, so I was about to go into my whole spiel about Acolyte and how you do wall off, and this has happened before and will happen again. And Harstem, with his probe on the outside of his own wall, generally scouts or maybe even puts down his own proxy, but no, takes a hidden expansion. There's really no reason to do this. It's not like, you know, he got pylon blocked, so he's saying, you know, F it. No, this is a secret little plan he's hatched. Goat Boy, 1975, 42-month resub. That is a long time. Thank you so much. Now, this probe, unlikely to scout the hidden nexus. I mean, even if he was to scout for a proxy, as people usually do on Acolyte, although funnily enough, neither of them are doing, you don't really scout the very corners, because that's usually not where the Stargate is. The Stargate would be here, or here, or here. Like, it's just not in the actual bases. So this should never be scouted. DnS could scout, nice recall, of the lack of the natural here, and then start to panic a little bit. But it looks like he is focusing on the front side of things. Two pylons to the front. What is this, PvT? Mothership core even getting some damage on the growing pylon of Harstem. Overcharge is overcharge, but this one's a lot faster, so Harstem doesn't even bother using his. That's probably a much smarter move. And probe is going to go home, I guess. This gateway's going to fall. some really crucial production. I mean, you don't have a lot of gateways at the beginning of a PvP. What an annoying little maneuver. And this is all off of 2 base, by the way. DNS with a natural base, chrono boosting out probes. Didn't follow up with anything too cheesy, just a robo and more gateways. But these pylons done a lot of damage. Oh, again, DNS still doesn't know about the lack of a natural. Doesn't know about the hidden base. And won't be able to realize potentially that this is actually a third. By the time he scouts this, you know, there could be a few less minerals. You don't really think about scouting unless you already are suspicious of something. The mineral counts, probe count. And that's where Harstem, I think, would get the potential benefit, is when he has an expansion above his opponent, because his opponent thinks that, you know, he's still 1 base, 2 base, 3 basing it or something like that. But what's funny is that, at least the Adept gets in here and gets a nice scout. As long as DNS thinks it's a normal game, the fact that Harstem has a hidden base doesn't really matter. It's when they are like, oh my god, they're 2 base all-inning me, and they hold off on their own third, that's when a secret third becomes, you know, really useful. Or in extreme scenarios, a new base trade. And I guess there's something to be said about an extreme scenario where this third, which is actually a 4th, will be very healthy compared to DNS's, who will have to take this as a 4th and will be much more vulnerable. Now, a lot of times we see hidden expansions and it's really awesome to get all hyped about it and say, oh, it's so clever. I would say more times, like 80% of the time, it just doesn't seem to be that useful. And then it becomes a liability once it's scouted. DNS might have gotten into the main base, but he did not get into the natural. The main base looks all Gucci for a 2-base Protoss because it is a 2-base Protoss. You know? Second base is right here, and he didn't see this was a late third or late natural. This looks totally normal for his vision. Harstem goes for double forge and is looking to be greedier than his opponents, which DNS, I guess, is gonna fall behind on, sure. But again, it's not because of the hidden base. Temple Archive's faster for DNS. Harstem's gonna be adding it, I guess, later time. Charge for both players. Harstem's much later, but will DNS really be looking for a point of attack? Will he really be looking for a timing here? I don't know. Lucid Phoenix sees what now might be a suspiciously timed third. Like, wow, is he really so scared? Sees the natural not quite fully saturated and also with an odd number of minerals. I mean, look how it is compared to this one. Not the most obvious thing in the world, really. I mean, if you're really looking at it, you can tell. But was he looking that hard? He might just see that third base and be like, wow, you're so far behind. A lot of pylons coming up for DNS. Who is, you know, seeing that third base, either thinking, oh, you're so far behind, or where are all the extra gateways? Where's the all-in coming? He's going to probably lose out in the 4th base timing, and this is where hidden base suddenly really shows its strengths. As DNS panics and waits a minute, like a full 60 seconds, just like, wait a second, you're not pushing, so I should have expanded. Harstem also getting a 4th base before he even gets a lot of production, so being quite greedy about it. You can see in the army supply, had DNS pushed, Harstem would have been in a lot of trouble. Two now on the way. Harstem continuing. Well, chrono boosting out one of the upgrades at least. Has access to Archons himself and will have a very strong gateway blossom of production going up to 10 gateways to DNS's 8, which with DNS going for a much later 4th base. Now it's on taking the Zelnagas. DNS taking a little bit of that map control. Harstem should be, I think, even getting ahead in army supply in another minute or two here. And certainly he will be on that upgrade advantage. DnS sees a very large army, a saturated third base, because he doesn't know it's a fourth. And is probably scratching his head going, okay, well, if you were two-base all-inning and decided not to, you should start falling behind on production. From my understanding, especially with how defensive he was with the pylons, DnS does not have any idea about a hidden base. So I'm going to continue casting as that is, I believe, the case. So looking at what DnS has scouted, he's probably thinking that Harstem's going to run out of steam soon. Right? Like, he's going to run out of minerals here, obviously, and then run out of minerals in his natural. And then not be able to outproduce him eventually, but it's quite the opposite. The amount of gateways that Harstem got might be a little bit like really what's happening. Like, how is he even, like, matching my production? But Harstem never got too far ahead in the armor supply like I thought he would. He's still taking advantage of the double upgrades, however, he's still ahead, even on armor supply. Just cancels his 5th. He doesn't quite need it yet. This base still pretty healthy mining. Harstem prepared to take a fight, has a concave, has upgrades, +2 armor just finished. Charge lots have to come forward. There they finally come out. Folks at overcharge as well. And should DnS really be pushing this issue? I don't think so. Falling down in supply a little bit, but his Warp Prism is still alive. Both players warping in, but the upgrade just being so superior. And DnS just lost all of his army. Catastrophic. Losing the Warp Prism as well. And Harstem should take this opportunity to counterattack. And DnS not ever knowing about this hidden base. The real problem, I think, certainly was that 4th timing. That was just, it was too late, and just also not ever going for a second forge because he never thought he could be greedy enough. 2 huge problems. And then also, I would say, even without the upgrade advantage, even without the 4th base being later, that was always going to be a tough fight to really win, right? The armor supplies were equal. He should have clicked and seen the upgrades. Defense advantage would have kicked in. I'm surprised DnS took that fight. He took a similar one on Abyssal Reef, but then Harstem was also really choked in on Abyssal Reef. That time he had a concave and was obviously prepared for the fight. It's a bit of a question mark from that one, but DnS finds himself down 20 army supply. Still down in upgrades, even his +3 finishes for him. And now Harstem has to make the tough decision. 20 army supply lead, upgrade lead. Do I really push into this? Maybe not. 5th base is coming down here. Might be a bit better position. He can also transfer his probes now whenever this finds out. Shield upgrades. Interesting stuff. It's more expensive, but it would help the entire army, especially with the amount of Archons, a little bit more. And Harstem has a ton of Archons. 13 Archons to 7. But 40 charge lots to 17. Dear Lord, DnS. DTs are warped in. There is detection with the cannon, but not enough of it. That is going to be a rampage, hard to stop. DnS has to be very careful how he splits his army away to deal with it. He's going to start losing important tech structures as well. Temple Archives is still pretty important. Only attacking with 3/4 of his army. The other 4th comes forward finally. But Harstem still has the upgrade lead. Barely not in that +3 armor, but it probably won't matter. So many zealots they returned over there to try and deal with this, but it's it. GG. Harstem, sneaky little base, takes game number 2 to tie it up 1-1. That's going to take us into our 3rd match. All equal here, which is going to be on Abyssal Reef. See you there. There we go. Game number 3 in the top left. As the blue Protoss, he is Harstem. In the bottom right, as the red Protoss, it is DnS. Not sure why he chose that. Maybe it's an acronym for something in French. I wouldn't know. And a nice evening game. Harstem with that proxy, or rather hidden base. DnS figured it out, by the way. Either he checked the build order or... Well, that's probably what he did, because he accepted the invite really fast. He didn't watch the replay. I think he just checked the build order and saw that a Nexus was put down. Well, actually, that still wouldn't tell him. No, I mean, he might have gotten the replay for like a second before I invited him. I'm not sure. But anyways, he said, nice hidden base, Kevin. So, he knew. But at what point he knew, I'm not sure. That was a pretty clever move from Harstem, all things considered. I talked about how sometimes a hidden base can be a real weakness, because I don't think the benefits are as good as fast as a lot of people think. Sometimes they are when you're in that like scenario where you're being contained and you manage to get a hidden base, so then that sometimes is actually like a big problem. But if it's like a normal game with a hidden base, it takes a little while for it to really show how effective it can be. But it's not really something you can do on a lot of other maps. Acolyte specifically, having that in-base expansion and Protoss is both kind of agreeing to wall off. DNS might have scouted for proxies, as I mentioned in the last game, but certainly not for hidden expansions. So that's a trick that you use once every blue moon, because eventually people will start scouting for it. Now DNS gets his scout into the main base, but doesn't see this. Has him right up against that corner. Thank you to Phalanx0808 for the Twitch Prime sub. Could he be watching the stream? Well, the stream doesn't have a delay, so he would have had to have gone back in the VOD, which is also possible, but seriously, he immediately joined the lobby. Well, I guess I waited like 30 seconds to invite him, so... Anyways. Proxy Gateway, not Stargate. So that direct to-the-face aggression that DNS was using against Harstem. Harstem could be looking for some revenge. Adepts will shade into the natural, see a suspicious lack of said natural. Choose not to shade in any further. DNS going for the typical build is getting a sentry, putting down one pylon at the front, which you should always do. You don't need more than this triangle. Perfection in the main base. And is now scouting for the Stargate, but look, hey, see, it's a gateway. Now, I don't think they can kill the pylon fast enough, especially because they're killing the gateway instead. But will this work now that it's been scouted? Robo's on the way for DNS. Gonna be able to crown out that immortal as fast as possible now that he knows what's on the way. Harstem not getting quite the same element of surprise that DNS was always able to get against him in the earlier series today. Adepts are a bit of a nice little boon there. No, actually they shade out just in time. If they had died, that would have been a nice army supply lead. But I think that DNS has everything set up for his victory. And if Harstem can't do damage with this, then he won't have a very good macro game behind it. Without a Nexus, he is just choosing to double down, going for a Stargate as well. Popping as many overcharges as possible, taking as little damage as possible. Thank you very much to Tempo for the 48-month resub. The Vespian is always greater when it's 4 years old. Happy 48. Hot damn. I think he attempted to snipe something important there, but didn't really grab very much. Loses a couple stalkers instead. The Stargate is finished up, but the Stargate still isn't producing anything. Harstem pretty desperate to make this work. Now down 6 probes. Still without a very good army. Going in for the attack. The barrier has been popped. He's going to focus fire down the Immortal, but will that be enough? He's taking a lot of damage while doing that. Now getting the sentries. 2 of them go down. Mothership Core is very close to dying as well. She does not have enough energy for an overcharge. Things are getting really, really Harstem favored. DNS is suddenly plummeting in supply. And he's going to tap out. Wow, GG. I truly did not expect Harstem to take that game. DNS perhaps a little bit... I mean, I thought he was going to win. Maybe he thought the same thing. Like, no way he's going to commit to another attack. Perhaps was thinking about the future a little bit too much. Not getting a second or third Immortal. Obviously played a huge part. But Harstem was a nice focus fire too, I guess. Can't not talk about how well Harstem did. Big surprise. GG. Harstem now takes the quick 2-1 lead. Odyssey seems to always be the 4th map. That's so weird. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. It's so lonely without my cat cam. No micro on the Immortal. I mean, he did pull it back. It just couldn't go far enough. Yeah, force field. That's like really the complicated part for me about playing Protoss versus Protoss. I mean, sir, I don't really know the builds that well, so I'm always incorrect in my like Oracle timings and stuff. But I think the big small thing, the thing that's bigger than people think when they're in the lower leagues, it's a better way to put it instead of the oxymoron I was using, is that force fields can be absolutely critical. I talked about how Guardian Shield can be critical, but hey, that's a pretty easy thing to use, right? You get a sentry, wait for the energy, pop the Guardian Shield, and hey, I'm doing great. I'm doing what Zombie Grub said is really good. To actually get good force fields and utilize them correctly is an underestimated, underrepresented skill. Because honestly, at this point in time, 7 years in the Legacy of the Void, or StarCraft 2, we do expect the force fields to be useful, but we just never get to highlight how useful they can be. Potentially last game here. Last time they did go into an ace match, and I'm kind of expecting that, but hey, let's see what this guy can do. In the bottom right, as the blue Protoss, he is Harstem. In the top left, as the red Protoss, he is DnS. Wasn't DnS a Terran player? Nah, he's in Protoss for quite some time. He's just been one of those players that never really gets the you know, number one spot. So you kind of remember him from like a round of 8. Maybe you heard his name a couple times, and you don't really get to remember what his race is. But I think that's really been different in the last few months. I think DnS is going to be synonymous with Protoss, just as Harstem is. And everyone's going to know him a little bit. Yeah, people talking about perfect force fields back in like Wings of Liberty. I mean, I think it's like one of those drastic like counter effects where something is so overhyped that people force themselves to stop it, and in doing that, they underhype it. So beautiful fungals, for instance, right? Like, yeah, beautiful fungals are so easy to do. So casters, I think, as a whole, are really hesitant to be like beautiful fungal because everyone makes fun of them. When really it was a crucial fungal, and now it's a little bit more difficult to tag because it's not instantaneous. Same with force fields. Force fields are so plentiful because you literally just made Immortals and Sentries that if you didn't get at least some good force fields, like how bad were you really? You know, even when I was copying the Soul Train build, I would get a couple of decent force fields. But now that it's more of a, you know, even in all the matchups, you know, with Colossus coming back, 2 sentries are really important again in PvT. You know, versus Zerg, they're still pretty important, but not as plentiful as they were in Wings of Liberty. And in PvP, we just witnessed still being very useful. It's the 2 or 4 force fields that are instrumental instead of the 7 or 8 that just are like, well, that's a cool little spell you got there, broski. Adepts were made for both parties? No, those are Stalkers from DnS, followed up by more Stalkers. Now, Harstem followed up with Stalkers as well, and the timing really hits here if you have the build order to absolutely correct, that the Adepts should be, or if these were Adepts, sorry. If these were Adepts, you would have the defense, but they aren't. And in fact, the Adepts of Harstem come back and start tagging the Stalkers, getting some nice damage done. Harstem maybe could have snuck the Adepts in since DnS is even sending his Stalkers forward, but that's probably because he saw the Adepts weren't being sneaky. And the game continues on without much to be said about the openers. Robo, though, much faster for Harstem. DnS. What happened here that he was so much faster than a Robo? No sentry? No, there's a sentry. Well, I guess Adepts are cheaper, aren't they? Only slightly cheaper, but yeah, cheaper. So that's why I got a faster Robo. It would be great if DnS sniped that sentry, but not gonna happen. Thank you to Epsilox1 for the 36-month resub. Till I count that out being put down for both parties. Is DNS Korean? DNS is French. He's in a lot of the O Gaming tournaments. And that certainly, I hope he would also agree they've been a huge factor in his continuing success, his rise in the ranks. There are a lot of European countries that have a much stronger scene than we can even recognize. France being easily recognizable with O Gaming being so popular, but I mean, even Poland apparently has a lot of tournaments we just never get to see. So they still have a very strong community. And that does contribute to the strength of the region. Blink versus Charge. Okay, they're going to be equally timed, and I would usually give Charge the benefit of the doubt. We'll see what Blink can do. Harstem going for a gold base here. That's going to be, well, potentially not attacked, because it is kind of hidden. But with DNS having the more mobile force with Blink Stalkers, I don't think that'll be long for this world. Oh, is the Warping going to scout it or not? Oh, it's saying so close. If it was mine, he would have seen it. He sees a probe, but that could just be a probe. We didn't put it on a proxy pylon or something. And did he even see it? That was so close. Adept's dropping in the natural, and it seems that he did not see the gold base being taken. DNS is taking the regular base, which Harstem is going to see and just going to do a fist pump. He's always got to be careful, though. I mean, it's so easy for this Warp Prism to escape to the north and thus see the gold base. But perhaps at a later time, Harstem will be prepared to defend against it. He's got Charge. He's got a decent number of Immortals. He is moving into position to have a better time defending against it. And there, finally, we do see the Warp Prism with the Scout. Now, DNS has Blink finishing up. But will his Stalkers be able to outmaneuver this army of Harstem? Because that's what they got to do. I mean, if they go face-to-face against it, it's not going to work out so well. Gold base means Harstem has to produce less probes and put more into production faster. Adding on Templar Archives and a couple of gateways. DNS adding on a lot of gateways. Twice as many. And might be looking to punish that gold base. There's always that dynamic where, yeah, you want to punish the greedy person, but in doing so, you might overcommit. They might have the perfect defense, and you screw yourself up. Some players just think, okay, well, I guess you got it. I guess I'll macro too, and just take the loss, but you know, potentially minor one. But yeah, I think everyone, and whenever they see someone being super greedy, always has that kind of voice in the back of their head. It's like, little shit, you don't deserve that. I'm not gonna let you have it. And DNS, whether he was planning on already doing this or not, is prepping for a push. Hasn't taken the gas to the third base. Don't really need it quite yet, but eventually going into Archons, you want all of your gas as possible. And that is one downside for Harstem taking this base, is the lack of a sixth gas. A lot of Stalkers being warped in. Harstem scouts that and will probably be pretty happy with continuing Immortal production. I'm not sure it's been his main focus, though, so only at 2 with the third one just popping out. And they're on the front line, so gotta be worried about having them force-fielded forward. Looks like DNS is going to go to the natural instead of attacking the third base. He'd have to attack up and into a choke, so it might be a better move. Mothership Core is also going to be out of position now. Harstem looking to tag a couple of these units. It's Charge versus Blink. A couple of Adepts on the front lines, and the Immortals of Harstem are not target firing the Stalkers, but still getting their damage in here. A couple of Archons for Harstem. These are hallucinations from DNS, and I don't believe they're being targeted. No, they are not. Warp Prism on the front lines for Harstem, too. Even though he's right near his base, another Immortal comes forward. Things are really close. Arm Slice still really close. Harstem, where's your Immortal going? No! Bring it back. It's so important against what is only the remaining Stalkers. Harstem also, where is your Mothership Core? Still over at the third base, I guess. But could this be enough? Charge that's being warped in. Immortal, though, going to be target fired. Has lost his barrier already. Only gets a couple more shots before it goes down. And Harstem might have been caught with too few Immortals. Too few units. And no Mothership Core for the Photon Overcharge. I think it's too late now. It is. GG. Ace match between these two guys. Totally called it. Last time Harstem took the ace match victory. Or sorry. No, I was right with that. Harstem took it. Can DNS do it this time? Last map is going to be, let's see, Ascension. Yeah, that Immortal, man. That Immortal was sad. It really could have helped. When there was still an army to protect it, another Immortal would have been huge against the remaining Stalkers. But even on top of that, I think Harstem, you know, taking the army fight like he did ahead of his Photon overcharges, there is a certain benefit to doing that. Perhaps you catch them before they've warped in a very crucial amount of army supply, which is probably his plan. But then you have to hopefully prepare to retreat back into the overcharges. He never got that opportunity. He really committed for a very long time. And then, you know, by the time he got back, it was too late. I'm singing song lyrics right now instead of saying ready. There we go. Ascension to Ire will be our last map of the day. Ace match in the top left. As the blue Protoss, he is Harstem. And in the bottom right, as the red Protoss, it is DnS. First game of the day was between these two, and Harstem clutched it out in the last game, defending against another proxy gateway. Can it be different this time? Harstem is going for a cannon rush to end the day. Will this actually work? DnS has been probe scouting, usually, I want to say. So the chances of him seeing the probe, catching it, scouting it, chasing it, is pretty high. But this could be the fake. Harstem might not mind that this first probe is scouted, or maybe he goes for it anyways. DnS could possibly still think this is a fake, though. I mean, who actually cannon rushes in this game? Especially once you've scattered it out. Harstem sends the other probe in, and that's when you know things are real. Things are for serial. And things are already looking really bad for Harstem. I'm really not sure why he showed the pylon. Oh boy. Photon overcharge. Usually a pretty good spell to have against this, but the Militia Core is going to be a long time coming. First and foremost, got to pull the probes, deal with the cannons initially. But by not dealing with the probes themselves, Harstem continues to slap down structures. Gateway now being added on for that real huge buffer for the one cannon. There's only one cannon so far. These cannons should not be able to get up like this. Instant cancels. Probe almost goes down, but a third probe joins, so still two probes to deal with. More cannons are going to come down here, and DnS needs to start production. He's going to start a Mothership Core, but Harstem's even building a bit of a wall here. So the surrounds from the probes couldn't even happen, even if he wanted to. That cannon is in range, and dear lord, is Harstem actually to make this work with a basically scouted cannon rush. Photon overcharge is very useful. There are so many things to target fire. It might cancel one cannon, but it won't get the other one. And the Militia Core itself is not very useful to have. Actually gets both. But third, fourth, and fifth photon cannon are on the way. Dear lord. Dear God. DnS has got to start thinking about alternative ways to deal with this. You know, sometimes you can send out a probe and just barely be able to build another nexus, and we've certainly seen weird games like that, but even finding himself supply block, not compensating for the loss of that pylon, is about to lose a gateway, and he does not have enough firepower to go up against 4 cannons. Meanwhile, Harstem adding on his own gateway, planning for a bit of a macro game. Loses a follow-up probe. Good idea with a Militia Core to at least stop more probes from coming forth, but is that going to be enough? Once again, targeting down the probes. Barely doesn't get that last one. Oh no. And loses both Stalkers for it. Oh god. Oh no, not like this. Not like this. Stops one pylon or cannon, whatever it was, from getting up it. He needs more. He's a robotics facility and another gateway over here. An Immortal would chunk through these cannons very quickly, but it might just be too late. Dear God. Harstem, by the way, his gateway is finished. He just needs to build actual, there we go, Summon X core. And at this point in time, even if DnS eventually cleans up the cannons, he has taken so much damage. Harstem is going to be able to catch up on tech if this continues like this. What a way to end the last game of the day. More cannons. They are being taken down, but eventually these two on the backside will get up, and he's getting closer and closer to the actual mineral line. By emphasizing the mineral line, he is losing production. Well, it's more like DnS emphasized saving his production, so it's actually more DNS's defense. Immortal does pop out and starts just ripping through these cannons. Has Harstem kept this up long enough? He got to a cybernetics core, but not really macroing too well behind this, puts so much into the cannon attack. Gateways are finally done, turning into warp gates. Second immortal on the way too. Harstem's gonna go for a Stargate. Hold off on warp gate a little while longer. Second immortal with that barrier. It takes so long for cannons to kill. Now only 2 cannons left over. The immortals will rip through this, and Harstem, is he just gonna tap out actually? GG. DnS barely gets to a robo to build some immortals. Harstem unable to be aggressive enough with the cannon hopping, and that was very, very close. But Harstem, down and out now, was able to get to the winner's match, lost some mana, had a rematch versus DnS, lost to DnS. Congratulations to DnS, and neither one of my picks made it out, so at least I had that whole mana could do this thing going for me, because he definitely did. Mana first, DnS second. What a world. That's going to end the broadcast for today. So we update the bracket here. Thank you all for watching. Very interesting day indeed. There we go. I'd like to remind everyone that there will be no cast tomorrow or Sunday or Monday. Tuesday will be our next cast of the Alima League, and then there will be a bit of a lull on the channel as BlizzCon gets heated up. I'll be casting that, so you won't see me at all, but maybe Riffin will do a couple of streams while I'm gone. And then actual BlizzCon people will be busy. So, hope you got as much StarCraft as you could in this past week. We've been casting like double days. This has also been sponsored by TING, obviously, with all the branding around here. I think we figured that one out. You can go to bttv.ting.com to learn more about it yourself. Get $25 off if you do sign up, which could just be your bill. If you're around Wi-Fi a lot, you're a U.S. resident, I guess, you actually live in the U.S., this could be the mobile phone service for you. It is for me. I use them. Can attest to how good they are. Thank you also to the channel sponsors, Twitch, Corsair, and MeUndies. You can check out more about those sponsors down below in the links. You can also use the Amazon links down below if they're still there. And that'll about cover it. You can follow me at ZG Gaming on Twitch, Zombie Grub. I will find it very difficult to stream before BlizzCon, so don't expect it, but hopefully come back after BlizzCon when I start up my real streaming schedule, I suppose. And Ting will also continue after BlizzCon, so going into, I think, a couple more groups and then into the round of 8. Hope you all enjoyed the cast. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time for the Alima League on Tuesday. Bye-bye.